Hello, and welcome to Aptify with Christopher Hunter. In this developer episode, I'm going to show you how I personally use Docker Desktop to run SQL Server containers. This, in effect, removes my need to have SQL Server installed locally on my machine and allows me to run as many Aptify database instances as I desire that my computer storage can hold. Now, if you haven't heard of containerization yet or Docker yet, let me just give you a really quick summary. I am no way an expert in any way, shape, or form. I just dabble in some basics and got SQL Server running. But in general, containerization came from the Linux world. It's been there for a very, very long time. I believe it was made mainstream by Docker, who has pushed it forward. And in the simplest terms I can think of is think of a VM that you run normally, but you don't actually install Windows on it and then install, say, SQL Server on it. Instead, this containerization is a VM that hosts only the services and features, APIs, whatever that SQL Server needs to run. So you strip out all the GUID and all the headache of installing a whole operating system. And this is just a single containerized image that just does essentially one thing. In our case today, we're running SQL Server. Now, if you caught it, I said Linux. So we are not doing Linux containers today when Docker made everything mainstream or containers became mainstream. Microsoft jumped in and did create what are known as Windows containers. They're not the most popular thing in the world, but they do work. I am using a Windows container SQL Server image, and that's what we'll be showing off here today. But make sure you hit that subscribe button because I will be switching over soon to the Linux containers. I have done it before and using SQL Server with Linux, and it does work pretty well. So make sure you're subscribed to check that out once I get that all up and running. Now, before I show this all off, I need to stress this is for development and research purposes only. I have in no way tested this, validated it, done any performance matrices, or anything in a sort of production environment. As well, I haven't confirmed it yet, but I believe at time of recording, the SQL Server container images do not support Active Directory logins, which is also, for Aptify clients, this is a big deal. It's our number one way of logging in. So you'll only be able to use SQL Server logins, which also just makes it perfect for development environments. Okay, enough of me chatting. Let's get in and see how this all works. So to start us off, I have created a GitHub repo that you can access that has the Docker file of the image that I use and some brief stuff. I'll make sure all links are in the description below and on Connect so you guys can easily get to them. So you're free to use this one if you want to see the actual Docker file. It's just in this Docker file folder that was used to actually build this image. It's almost a one-to-one to Microsoft's default one. Just the only difference really is full text indexing has been included because Aptify beyond 5.5 requires full text indexing. So I've also left some very basic instructions here, how to build your own local image of it. I'm going to show you this in just a second. I have built the image and I've posted it publicly on Docker Hub, so you can just pull it down yourself without having to build it locally. This image is the exact one if you just built it locally. There's no difference in it. I've got the run command, which I'll show you guys. And I'm going to go through actually restoring an Aptify and connecting it up. So then I do have it on Docker Hub. Here it is publicly available. And essentially, you just need the pull command, and away you go. But before you do anything, you need Docker installed. Now, everything I'm going to show you is based on Docker Desktop. It's what I use. You can get it for Windows 10, Windows 11, and it works great. So simply just go Docker download Docker Hub, and away we go. So let's get into the fun. Because this is Docker container instance and that, there is actually no GUI. So everything is command line. So once you've got everything installed, reset, there is one caveat. When you install Docker, it will be in Linux containers. For all of this to work, you need to switch to Windows container. This is simply done by going to the Docker taskbar icon duty, right click, and then there will be a switch to Windows containers. If Hyper-V isn't fully enabled on your computer yet, it will pop up with a PowerShell script to run. It's a single line script. Just run that, and it just turns on all the Hyper-V permissions that Docker needs. It'll get you to reboot, and then away you go. You'll be in Windows containers. And then from there, once you've done that, you can simply go over to my Docker Hub, copy this Docker pull, and execute this command. Now, for time savings, it will take a few minutes to download. I've already done this, and you can see if I look at my Docker images, I have chunterme/SQL Windows latest. You will notice it is essentially 12 gigabytes big. So every time, one, you're taking up 12 gigabytes just to have this image. And then every time you spin up a new container, that container will be 12 gigabytes. Manage your use as you will. So from there, we're going to actually boot up a container. But before we do that, Docker PS will show you all your active running containers. And as you can see, I have none running at this moment. So now let me show you the run command. And I'll break this down a bit because it's quite big. So I'm not an expert at what all the dashes in that are, but I'll do my best. So Docker run, we essentially want to run and instantiate a container. I totally forget what the dash D is, but it's so when you run this, it doesn't automatically take you into terminal within the container. So dash P is your port. Now, SQL Server runs on port 1433. And what we're doing here is we are mapping a local port on your host machine, your computer, to the exposed 1433 of the container images. This is what is going to allow you to actually connect into the Docker image through SQL. Because you don't have, if you have SQL Server installed, this is how SQL Server doesn't get confused. If you don't have SQL Server installed, then technically, yeah, you can use 1433. It's open. I personally, if you see any of these in the future in that, I love the 8000 spectrum for, I have no idea. I just chose it. This container image then has a few environment variables or variables you can pass into it. The first one being the SA password. So the beauty of this is you do the SA password here, and that's it. It's not, you don't have to, after the image is uploaded, go and do something or have it saved into a file somewhere. You one time enter the password here, and that's it. As it's spinning up, it will change the SA password, and that password isn't logged anywhere. The next one is the most important, the mount command. So Docker images are very small, and typically you don't want to store any persistent data within them because you treat them as a service. They can stop and start, be destroyed, spun up again at willy-nilly. So you don't want to keep your database in there. You can if you want. If you want to go research more on Docker, there's ways to extend the image size, and you can copy your file into there. But what the mount does is essentially tells the Docker image that this folder on the host system, you have access to it. So what I'm doing here is I have this folder, which is right here, which currently contains our Aptify backup. And I'm going to mount that into the Docker container under C:\data. So this is where our SQL Server, once we connect, this is where the database will be hosted. And then you're going to give it a name. I'm just calling it SQL-Server. And then the last command is which image I am running this off of. As you can see, this image matches the one from our images with the latest tag. Latest tag isn't required, but full example. So from here, once this is entered, you just give it a nice, and hit enter. We get this wacky key. And in a second, we wait for our command prompt to come back. Ta-dum! So now if we do a Docker PS, remember Docker PS shows us our active containers. Hello! Now we've got one up. We've got container ID, which image it used, the command. This is the initial command that's in the Docker file. Feel free to go look at it. Status, so healthy starting. This essentially means it is spinning up. So the service is spinning up, and you can see the port. So the port, so localhost 8500 is port forwarding into 1433 through TCP. And then if we do Docker, it takes about 30 seconds, I think, to fully, there we are. And now we are healthy. So it's up and running. As well, Docker Desktop does come with this nice little GUID. And you can see, here's our Docker image. And when it's green, it means it's running. You can also click into here if you want to see the logs and such. But okay. So now that I say I've got a container instance going, let's do the real test. I'm using SQL Management Studio here. Okay, now that SQL Management Studio is open, I apologize if this is a little small, but I like to use 127.0.0.1 personally. You don't have to. You can just use dot for the local. The big thing is you need a comma after it to specify the port. If you've never used ports with SQL Server, it's not colon, it is a comma. So I did mine for 8500. And then our super secure password. Hey, check this out. Now we're into a SQL Server. And there's no database yet. Of course, there's no database yet. So we're going to restore a database. And from device, because remember I said that mount connects it in. So I can go up here and see there's the data folder. There's a backup folder or backup file from this folder locally on my machine. Okay. And then, so I have access to the MDF files and the log file. We're going to instead move it into data, and away we go. Now I should prefix, this is a Aptify baseline stock image. That's why this is going to restore in a matter of seconds here. And then I forgot one little script I need. Okay, there's our Aptify. New query. Come on, Management Studio. Now, one of the things I like to do every time I do a restore, like a direct restore, so a brand new instance of Aptify, I have this little script, and all it does is enables CLR, because you need CLR for like record history and that stuff, and it sets Aptify to be trustworthy. That's all. So we'll just do that guy quickly. And then to show you the database is there, select top 1000 star from view persons. Ta-da! Look at these people. Look at all these beautiful people. And there's everyone's fascia. Now you can tell Aisha Baldwin. This is definitely an Aptify stock image. Okay. But then let's take it one step further. This is an Aptify 6.2 image. And I do happen to have a desktop client for Aptify 6.2. Now, I do like to use the attributes. So I can be a little lazy. So we'll change this to 8500, 8500, because now, just to show you, I don't have any other instances open. If we go into services, I don't have SQL Server installed. So when we start this guy up, that we're connecting to 127.0.0.1, comma, 8500. So we wait for the desktop, because you know at desktop's desktop. Boom. Look at this. Now we got Aptify desktop. And now let's just grab a person. Swing. So you can see it's all working here, and we can do one more. I do have an eBusiness 6 SOA. Let's switch this up to point to 8500. And then we can go check the server connection. Give this a second. eBusiness 6, you know, it recycles when you change any of the web config. There it goes. And we have our server up and running. And I believe we can even go to help to see. And here we are, the help page. You can see all the eBusiness ones. And that's that. So, hope you guys enjoy this. Try Docker out. Hit me up on Connect if you run into any issues. And we'll catch you next time. Bye.